Hi, my name is Debra Richardson, and I work with you to help you clean up your vendor data, clean up your vendor processes, and pay the right vendor. Now, this week's Vendor Master File tip of the week is IRS Tax Exempt Organization Search Tool for your nonprofit vendor setups. And I'm doing this because I still keep coming across accounts payable teams that don't know about this search tool. So let's go ahead and start. And I am going to start with just identifying what is considered nonprofits or tax exempt organizations. And they are vendors that have registered or organizations that have registered with the IRS as tax exempt organizations. Now, this does include charities, churches, and religious organizations, private foundations, political organizations, as well as other types, including social welfare organizations, civil leagues, social clubs, labor organizations, and business leagues. Now, you might wonder, well, why do I need to use this IRS tax exempt organization search tool? Well, a few things that it'll do for you. One is you can check the organization's eligibility to receive tax deductible charitable contributions. And I'll show an example of that in a moment. You can also review information about the organization's tax exempt status and filings. And then lastly, the one I really like is this is another tool to verify that your vendor is real. And we all know that fraudsters are out there pretending or purporting to be fake charities, especially when there's a disaster, a natural disaster like we had with the pandemic and COVID, or there have been, hurricanes in the recent decade. And so they've jumped all over that with these fake charities. And this is a great tool that you can use to identify if that charity is real. All right, so let's take a look at it. This is the actual search tool page. I will link to it in the description, but you can search by employer identification number or by vendor name as well. If you do the drop down, you'll see where you can search by name. And so I did do a search. I'm not going to show it. And I did a search for a charity that is a public charity. Everybody knows it, but I am still um, uh, blurring out or redacting the employer identification number, the tax ID, because that's just what I do. But you can see here that the results is that one, they are on the publication 78 data list, which is a list of organizations that are eligible to receive tax deductible charitable contributions. But you'll also see a code here, and this one happens to be PC uh, that will show you what their tax deductible or deductibility limitations are. So for example, I show PC, that means it's a public charity, and it has a 50% deductibility limitation or 60% for cash contributions. And that just tells you what your company may be able to take advantage of if they pay donations to that particular organization. And I know that as a accounts payable manager, when we set up organizations that were charities, those 501c3s, we would we would also document them as such in the accounting system in ERP. And then at the end of the year, at the beginning of the next year, we would send a list of all of the payments to those vendors that were documented and we would send that over to our tax team. Now, I don't know what they did with it. Maybe they included it on the company's tax returns, maybe they didn't, but we would document those vendors as charitable vendors, 501c3, and we would send those reports over. Now, I just talked about the IRS tax exempt organization search tool, nothing else dealing with nonprofit or tax exempt vendors. But if you did want to learn more, I do have a couple of podcast episodes you might be interested in. One is episode 187 that just came out last week. If you're watching this, the day that it's published, if you're watching this Vendor Master File Tip of the Week when it's published, then you can even go on the rest of my YouTube site because I do have my podcast loaded and you'll see this one in the playlist. But I talk about the documents and validations that are required when setting up a nonprofit vendor because I still get questions about whether you have to even bother with them because you won't be reporting their payments on a 1099 MISC or NEC. And so I talk about that there. And then I talked about charities being one of the organization types of nonprofits. And so I also talked about fake charities and episode 56 and actually also episode 160 talks about charity fraud, how you can avoid sending crooks money on Giving Tuesday. And Giving Tuesday is always like the last Tuesday in November or the first Tuesday in December. This year is going to be November 29th of 2022. So if you want to listen to or get some tips and advice to not send your donations to fraudsters, definitely check that out. All right, so if you'd like some more information on how to improve your vendor processes, please go to my website, debrarrichardson.com, for free tools and resources to avoid fraud, regulatory fines, and just overall bad vendor data. So good luck and be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified next Tuesday for the next Vendor Master File tip of the week.